Welcome back to the show, folks. This is Mike Kegley here with Larry Smith, Brad Sturdy. We have producer Tony Cordero on as well today. And we have a treat, folks. This is the regular here on the show. Kevin Noon from Buckeye Huddle is here to talk to us. And Kevin, this is a huge week in Ohio because when Ohio State starts the football season, the state of Ohio stops moving. What is it like there in Ohio, and just how excited are the fans for another run at a national title?
Yeah, we can look past the 50-point line, 50 and a half point line. Ohio State is a favorite over Akron and kind of look at just really what the landscape is. Ohio State has not competed for a Big Ten title since the 2020 season, three straight losses to the team up north. And then you look at the last time that Ohio State was on the field, losing to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl in a game that was very un-Ohio State-like. Kyle McCord had transferred out to Syracuse already at that point, and Ohio State was kind of left figuring things out at that point. So a new opportunity with a team that had a lot of players that could have left to go to the NFL, a team that went out and got, I believe it was 7 players out of the portal, which for Ohio State is a lot. Colorado, maybe not as much, but for Ohio State, it's 7 was a lot, including going out to Kansas State and getting Will Howard, going to Alabama, getting Caleb Downs, getting Seth McLaughlin, Julian Sayin. I mean, Ohio State benefited as much as anybody, maybe even within the SEC, by Nick Saban's retirement. So a lot going on. And now the excitement comes on as you sit there and you look at Ohio State's schedule. And really, Ohio State doesn't turn it on until the second half of the season, until October 12th when it goes out to Oregon.
Looking at the play of the quarterback from that bowl game, it was not pretty, Kevin. We can all agree on that. How much has Will Howard energized that team, and what do you see him doing this year?
I mean, I think if you look at Will Howard, you see somebody who Ohio State went from having maybe hesitant runners to willing runners. Will Howard is the next level. Will Howard is somebody that is part of his arsenal. That is part of his arsenal is running. In Ohio State over the last couple of years, certainly in its little losing streak to the team up north, Ohio State has not been able to convert 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, 3rd and goal from the 3, things of that nature. That is something you were going to get with Will Howard. Now, I do want to say about Devin Brown and about Lincoln Kienholz, they were thrown into a bad situation. Will Howard has had the entire spring, the entire summer, the entire fall. Even though we've only heard Will Howard's going to be the starter for the last week, I think everybody kind of figured that was going to be the case. Will Howard now is getting the reps, he's getting the time, and I think Ohio State will be in a good position there. But Ohio State's carrying 5 scholarship quarterbacks. So I think, with what could be a 15, 16, 17 game season, I think we're going to see Ohio State do a little rotating, but Will Howard is your guy.
The Michigan fans, they don't want to talk much about Connor Stallions, but they do want to talk about the way their lines have performed. Is Ohio State, are they going to have that, I don't know, that knock the chip on my shoulder type of thing this year? It seems like, and I'm not saying that it's the way it is, it just seems like the Ohio State team hasn't had that punch them first attitude on the line that they used to have. Is that just the people look and say, okay, you know what, Michigan beat them, or is that a reality?
I think that's a fair assessment. I really do. And I think you sit there and, there are 2 lines. There's an offensive line and there's a defensive line. If you look at the offensive line, Ohio State has missed its number the last couple of years in terms of recruiting on the offensive line. I think that when you look at what the line is this year, when you have returning guys like Donovan Jackson, when you have Josh Simmons, when you have Josh Fryer coming back, I think that's important. You bring in Seth McLaughlin from Alabama, who is a 5th year. I think that's important. Really, Ohio State's offensive line only came down to one position of trying to figure out. And as of Tuesday, we learned Tegra Shabola was going to be the starter, but I think we're going to see a little bit more in terms of a rotation there. I think Ohio State probably is going about 7 or 8 deep on the offensive line, but there's a reason why 1 through 5 are 1 through 5. Those are your guys. I think if you look at the defensive side, I think that we've seen that Ohio State may be lacking getting home. I think we've seen Ohio State have a great pass rush, but they just haven't been able to get the quarterback on the ground. I think that when you look at Ohio State's defensive line, it may be one of the best in the nation. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau coming back in on your edge positions, and then you have Tyleik Williams. You've got a lot of veterans coming back on the interior line. So I think you're going to see a much improved line performance, offense and defense.
Will that make it, with that improved line play up front? Is that going to make it easier for that secondary to be a little more ball hawking, a little more attack, especially with the kid from Alabama coming in? They really seem like that back end may be the lead of this defense.
Yeah, they go by the moniker of BIA, Best in America, and I think that they have a position, they're in position to do that because even without Caleb Downs from Alabama, they still were bringing back Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Davis Igbinosun, Lathan Ransom. And even if they would have had to have gone to like a true sophomore as that fifth defensive back in their 4-2-5 system, I think they would have been just fine. But then you put Caleb Downs, SEC Freshman of the Year. He's getting, of all of the great players on Ohio State, Caleb Downs is the one getting All-American notice. I think that really puts Ohio State in a great position. And something that we've talked to defensive coordinator Jim Knowles about is causing turnovers. And I think that's something that they're going to be focusing in on a lot, especially when you look at a Big Ten that may not be deep in great passers. Ohio State may have one of them. Certainly Oregon's going to have one of them. Penn State is debatable where Drew Allar may be at that point, but it's not a league that's going to be deep in 300-yard passing games for a lot of programs.
It's interesting. NIL has been an important part of the teams that have been most successful. And of course, Lane Kiffin has been very sad about Ohio State and their dip into the NIL pool. How has Ohio State done? And do you see the machine in place to be self-replicating now?
I think you do, and I think that Ohio State went out. Gene Smith, one of the longtime ADs, retired. They go and get Ross Bjork, most recently of Texas A&M. I think he understands how NIL is going to work. A lot of that giving is going to go. Of course, Lane Kiffin is sad. Ohio State went out and got Quinshon Judkins this offseason, and the previous offseason got Davis Igbinosun. So Ohio State is immediately going in and taking food off of his table by going in and taking some of his guys. But Ohio State is one of 6-7 programs out there nationally that I think that really can get NIL done on a year in and year out type of basis. Ohio State has one of the largest alumni bases out there, and it's a question of, are you going to get $15 from everybody, or are you trying to get 15 millionaires to give $1 million or whatever? And I think you have to find a combination of the two systems.
When you look at this season that we're getting ready to start, and we all know what the goal is for Ohio State, right? It's championship time. It's been a few years since they've played for that championship, and the folks up there in Columbus are ready for one. If that falls short, is there any heat on Ryan Day at the end of this season?
I think falling short falls into a couple of different categories, and I won't get too long-winded on this because I could give a whole speech on this. Is them coming up short, losing to Michigan, but going all the way to the championship game of the CFP? Is it beating Michigan and coming up short and maybe having a stinker against Ole Miss? I mean, I think everything varies. I think Ohio State has to come out and play a good game against Michigan, probably beat Michigan, but you look at Ryan Day's record. If Ohio State goes 11-1 in the regular season and then has a run in the postseason and still maybe comes up a little bit short, there are about 128 programs out there that would be glad to take Ohio State's problem off its hands.
Yeah, that's the definition of a first world problem there, is if you're worried about a winning percentage of a coach who's been there that long. And I don't believe he's in double-digit losses yet, is he?
No, and I mean, and the thing that differs him from Urban Meyer is Urban Meyer had a Purdue game. Urban Meyer had an Iowa game. Ryan Day has lost to Michigan. He lost that Missouri game. That may be the biggest outlier of all of the losses that we've seen under Ryan Day.
Although, in fairness to Ryan Day, the bowl games that aren't a championship series bowl game, nobody really cares about anymore, right?
They're meaningless exhibitions at this point, and I think as the season gets longer and longer, we're gonna see more opt-outs at some point. Maybe not in the CFP, even though I have experts coming to me. It's like, even the CFP, because this is all about money. But I think when you have a team that largely came back to prove something, that's kind of important to win these games.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you so much for being on, folks. If you like what you heard here, Kevin Noon, he's on Buckeye Huddle, and fantastic content you can get. I would encourage anybody who's a Buckeye fan. If you're really a Buckeye fan, you're probably a member. If you're not, you have to analyze the depth of your Buckeye fandom. So with that, folks, we are going to go head out to a commercial, and we'll be right back after these messages.